Spiritual adultery is betraying the love and service we owe to Christ by putting any object or desire as first in our heart. Let me say that in a more concise way. To put it another way is to say this: spiritual adultery is finding greater pleasure in anything other than your relationship with Christ. Spiritual adultery is finding greater pleasure in anything other than your relationship with Christ. Now, what's really frightening is just how much can be considered spiritual adultery by that definition. Every single one of us is convicted. Now, our internal lawyers are ready for this fight. We immediately jump with the question, hold on, can that be an accurate definition? I'm afraid so. But that's where the hope of verse 6 makes sense. Look at verse 6. But He gives more grace. Therefore it says, God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the humble. In other words, yes, James recognizes what he's saying in verse 5. If friendship with the world is hatred toward God, then we are all guilty. And yet, at that point, we need not panic. Because the fact that we are all convicted by these verses is why James stresses the abundance of grace. Note this quote from Proverbs 3. God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the humble. God doesn't say He gives grace to the perfect, for none of us then would receive grace. No, He gives grace to the humble. Now, does that remind you of something? We noted last time the humble meekness of wisdom. God's wisdom leads us to humble ourselves before God's holiness, recognizing our unworthiness in and of ourselves. And why? So that we might trust and exalt Christ in salvation by faith. What a gracious God we serve. He makes peace with us, not because we deserve it, but because we humbly ask Him for the righteousness of Christ. That's what you and I must do. Even as Christians, when we recognize our spiritual adultery, we humble ourselves before God and ask for His forgiveness in Christ.